Diana. Hello? Yeah. Off the top, it
Hi, Liz.
All right. I think I've got everything open. I was going to try and do it a different way, but I don't think I'm going to get at it.
Hi, Liz.
Who was that?
That was just an echo. I apologize for that. All this is being recorded and broadcast at the same time.
All right. Well, it's going to be interesting since I've not done this before.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, as everybody joins in, I will beg forgiveness in advance because I haven't done this before. And Cecil, do you turn the meeting over to me or Brian? How do we do that?
You have full permission to, you can just begin the meeting.
Okay, and then how do I transfer it to the consultants?
They'll just start talking and unmute themselves. I can see everything right now. Yeah.
And they can use their own share slides kind of thing?
Yeah, all panelists, including the consultants, have full permission to use their slides.
Okay, thank you.
One note, Liz.
Yes, please.
If you want to see the council members on your main screen, if everybody else turns off their video, then the council shows up and whoever's speaking, that when they turn their video, it shows up on your main screen.
Thanks. I don't think I have as much trouble with that as you do, but we'll see. But maybe. All right, so. All right, so you said that if people aren't speaking, they should turn their videos off?
Yeah, if you want to the top people on the main screen that you have, if you want just like say the council to show up and whoever's speaking, when everybody else turns off the video, they go down lower in line.
Okay, and they don't, and does that stay on?
Yeah, as soon as they want to speak, they turn on the video and then they'll show up in line with everybody else.
Yeah, sorry, do the council members stay on top after we've done it once? Okay, so yes. Everyone but council members, please turn off your videos.
So did they rearrange on your screen?
Frozen, or are you okay?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see Sergio. Sergio, are you here?
If you right click on an image, you can pin people to the top.
There. Okay, say that again, please, Paul.
If you right click on someone's screen, there's a pin video. I think you can pin them and then they'll stay at those. So you can pin the council members, for example, to stay at the top. Okay. You right click on my picture and it should say chat or pin video.
How do you do that on the iPad?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I see it. Okay.
I think that means you can keep those people visible whether they're speaking or not.
I think you're right. Let me try it again.
And then people don't have to drop out video-wise.
Right, okay.
And I just wanted to announce that I've joined the meeting. I wasn't sure if you saw that I came on.
Thank you for that, council member. Okay, it says replace pin. All right, I have no idea what that means, but I'll try it. Okay. Oh, it only lets me, when it says pin, it only allows one person at a time.
I didn't know that, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm anxious to try it all. All right, so, and where is there, Sergio? Okay, and you can't move them up. All right. So, okay, well, we're gonna try this and see how well I do. And I beg for forgiveness in advance. All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and council members and staff to our special meeting of Monday, January 11th, 2021. And I call this special meeting to order. This special meeting is conducted via telecommunications and is compliant with provisions of the Brown Act and Executive Order N2920 issued by the government. This city council meeting is being live streamed on channel 26, the city's website, and YouTube. And with the city clerk, may we do roll call, please?
Councilmember Bybee.
Present.
Councilmember Landry.
Oh, present.
Councilmember Lopez.
Present.
Vice Mayor Reznikov.
Here.
Mayor Gibbons.
Here. Thank you. Don't we do the Pledge of Allegiance at some point here? Thank you. If you would all say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I may note that the flags are flying at half-mast at the request of our government in honor of the Capitol Police officers who died on Wednesday. The agenda today is a point of going to oral requests. This is a portion of the meeting that is reserved for persons wishing to address the City Council on any matter not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council are requested but not required to complete a speaker card or respond to this invitation. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. The law generally prohibits the council from discussion or taking action on such items. However, the council may instruct staff accordingly regarding oral requests. Madam Clerk, do we have any oral requests?
We do not.
Thank you. We will now go to the unfinished business portion of our meeting. This is item 1, receive information and updates regarding Measure O, including 1, a summary and overview of projects, 2, receive site plan, C, receive and consider conceptual design plans for the police building, and D, receive and consider conceptual design plans for the library building. And with that,
Mayor Gibbons, I'm going to recuse myself as I have in the past because of the proximity of my house to the police department proposed site. I'll watch remotely and then I'll join back in when we go to the library only.
Thank you. And for that, on that basis, we're going to be doing the agenda as previously arranged. We'll do the general topics to begin with, and then we'll talk the police, and then you back when we get to the specifics of the library.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Brian, do we have a staff presentation?
Unless Brian jumps in, I can go ahead and take that. So let's see.
Please, Todd, please do.
Yes, okay. Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Haven't seen you as a group since December 31st, so Happy New Year to all. I appreciate the Mayor going over the title because the title actually really helps provide our agenda for this afternoon. You're going to receive a summary and overview of the Measure O project. You will receive and review a site plan, and then you will receive and consider the conceptual design plans for the police building and then for the library building. The recommended action is that Council will consider the conceptual design alternatives, select an alternative if appropriate, and/or provide feedback to staff and the consultants regarding each project design. So at some point when we get there, the heart of today's meeting will be the presentation by each of our design teams to help Council and the public understand the process to get to where we are today. All material provided to Council reflects the work of each respective project team, which includes the design teams, the staff, and the respective client departments. There have been several iterations for each set of designs, and many compromises have been made along the way. However, there are still many details that need to be resolved, and the hope is that we can collectively hear your thoughts and concerns and continue to move the designs forward. Before we get there, I did want to highlight a few issues that we did hear at the last time we were at Council at the December 1st meeting. We did hear Council comments and concerns regarding how the overall site would work, regarding the budget sufficiency for the PD portion of the project. There was a suggestion that tracking expenditures associated with the existing PD space that be done so separately, and that there were concerns about library programming and if that was being done in an appropriate manner. While those will not be addressed individually, one at a time, those concerns have been incorporated into the material that you will hear this afternoon. So we're hoping that those of you that raise those issues, you will find that to your satisfaction. But if not, please continue to ask questions and we'll continue the dialogue. I did want to also provide a quick recap for where we are in the budget. We do have a new council member, and then we may have others watching at home who haven't been following along, but I will not go into the same level of detail of what's in the staff report. But just at a glance, I did want to remind our audience that we are currently working under the assumption of a $25 million budget for the PD portion of Measure O and a $21 million project for the library portion. What that translates into at the construction level is that we're working toward a $20 million construction budget on PD and a $16.8 million construction budget on the library side. And the way that we arrived at those figures goes back to the early days of when we established what would be our working assumptions for Measure O, where we began with 20 million allocated for each project. Since that time, we have made allocations for what was called site work, what was called PD site work, the PD space allocation. We have reduced the contribution for the library temp space, which then brings back more money into the library side for construction. And we are recognizing a contribution from the Santa Clara Library District in excess of $500,000 toward the project. As for the new material, which I'll be turning it over to others here very shortly, you'll be hearing from our city engineer, Emmy Olay, on the presentation of the site plan that was included with your council report. And then you will hear from LPA, led by Jeremy Hart. He will present the PD conceptual design with support from MWL. Our project advisor, Tim Borden from Management Partners, will help facilitate the discussion. Chief Gary Berg is also available to help answer questions. And then we will turn it back. Then we will turn to the library project, and we will have that presentation from Jason Architecture, led by Abraham Jason. He will present the library conceptual designs. Once again, Tim Borden will help facilitate that discussion. And we do have our county librarian, Jennifer Weeks, also available to help answer questions and participate in that discussion. And then because of the earlier mentioned recusal, we do recommend that we would like to complete the discussion for each of the elements as we move forward, because when we invite our council member, Mr. Resnikov, back into the meeting, at that point we can only consider the library project. So that's the plan for this afternoon. And if there are not any questions about process or order, and I do see a hand, so if it's okay with the mayor, we can take a question from Councilmember Bybee.
I just wanted to ask for a clarification, Todd. Could you repeat the budget for each project? I didn't quite catch that.
Yep. Yes, I can.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
In the staff report, just want to make sure I'm using the same numbers. We have an overall project budget for PD, which is 25 million, and that includes a lot of the soft costs, most notably our design costs. So the 25 million translates into a construction budget of 20 million. And then with the library, it's a $21 million budget, which translates into a $16.8 million construction budget. And then all the pluses and minuses that have happened over the intervening months are described in more detail in the staff report. I didn't go into that in any great detail other than just to list out what the allocations are. But those are the numbers that we're working off with what you're going to see today.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
And so not seeing any others, I'm going to turn it over to Amy Olay to walk you through the site plan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members, City Council. In the previous council meeting, council had indicated the need for an overall civic center site plan. I do want to share that with you as I make my presentation. So perhaps Cecil, can you pull that up?
I'm sorry, Amy, do you should have full control if you'd like to. I do? Yeah, if you have share, to the green share button.
Okay.
And you'll just choose whatever presentation you like.
Thank you. I shall do that.
All right.
Okay, you able to see that?
No. No.
Yes.
No.
So Amy, if you select the green share button, it'll show all the open screens that you have on your computer.
Okay.
And if you have a PowerPoint, there you go. Good.
It's coming up, I think. It's a little bit slow. Oh my gosh. Well, while that's coming up, I just wanted to say that although the focus has been primarily on programming efforts for the PD and the library buildings, staff and the consultant teams have made considerations of how these two new projects would fit into the entire site to make sure that the work does not preclude any future plans. I don't know why this is going so slow. So I wanted to start off by talking about the Ingress and Egress access that we did consider, were the locations of the existing driveways and were those that will be closed.
So Amy, excuse the interruption. I think it would be helpful to figure out what's wrong with the graphics and make it much easier to follow your presentation.
Yeah. It's coming up little by little for some reason.
It's likely that your available memory is exhausted. One option, if you have an electronic copy like a PDF.
Amy, I can share the screen with the attachment from the staff report if that's a help.
Okay.
Give me a second here.
Okay, I'll stop sharing then.
Because I think that would happen on every single slide, Amy.
Luckily, I only have one slide.
All right. All right, does that help?
Yeah, and if you could close down the sides and make the picture as big as you can.
Yep. Not search.
Down at the bottom, yeah. You probably need to do it at about 100%.
All right.
Okay. I think we lost it again, Brian. There you go. You'll need to make it smaller, Brian. Sorry. At least on my screen, I'm only getting half the picture.
Yeah, we may need to scroll down, scroll up so that we can see the gravel lot area. So. Showing Grant Street, maybe?
Yeah, we need to see Grant.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can start from there.
Okay.
Okay, so on First Street, we have two existing driveways that as part of the PD site is being proposed for closing with a replacement by one new driveway. And then along Grant Street, the existing driveway to the PD lot will be relocated easterly. And I'm going to let LPA discuss in more details about this during their presentation. And all the other driveways that are existing around the site, those will remain where they are today. Those are not being changed. Okay. And then so another consideration with the site plan is, the displaced employee and to some extent the visitor parking resulting from the new PD facility and to find future sites for those parking spaces. So we have identified the existing gravel lot on the southwest corner of Grant and Harrison as a potential site for future employee parking. The Ainsley House Garden is shown there, but we are not touching that. We're doing everything that we can to retain that location. So it's just really where we have the just a gravel lot where there's existing parking. We would then need to lay out the parking stalls. And then on the existing, let me see, the existing employee parking on the northeast corner of First and Civic Center Drive, the size of that will be reduced. But whatever we have there, we'll look at to see how we can also maximize the number of parking spaces. Now, there's a third location that we're looking at, which is across from City Hall, and that is on the southeast corner of First and Civic Center. It's the parking lot that is adjacent to the Historical Museum lot. So though that area there, we also are thinking of turning that into a future employee/visitor parking. Keeping in mind that we would not touch those spaces that are designated for the historical museum. So those would stay as they are. Okay. And when we look at this in more detail, we will look at how the layout of the parking spaces, also considering then the number of ADA parking stalls that will be necessary in order to comply with American with Disabilities Act requirements. The other thing is so that the Measure O projects don't preclude any future improvement plans, we have also identified the future intersection improvement at Harrison and Civic Center. And that is a concept that has been included in the Campbell Transportation Improvement Plan. So we wanted to make sure as we looked at the entire site that all these different elements have been taken into consideration so that the siting and the location of the PD building and also the renovation of the new library doesn't preclude us from any of these future plans. And that's really the extent of the information for the site plan.
Okay, thank you, Amy. I'm going to ask the indulgence of the council members and say that I have a feeling we'll have more discussion on the site, but I'd like to see the presentations move along and then come back to that. So Amy, if you could stay available, I think that'd be helpful. And then Todd, I'd like to suggest we go into the next portion of the presentation.
Yes, very good idea. Let's see if we can get Jeremy. I know he's out there somewhere. There he is. So Jeremy will be taking over the screen now and we'll be moving into the PD presentation. Thank you.
Welcome, Jeremy. Thanks for coming back.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Madam Mayor and council members. It's great to be here and be able to present the next step and stages of the development of the PD project. Joining me today, Kate Connolly from LPA and Jim McLaren and Leo McGill from MWL are here as well to answer questions as we start to move forward with the project. So the first thing I wanted to do is walk everybody through the program. And I think as we start to understand the program for the new PD, it's really important to know that we took a look at this from a prioritization standpoint. As we started to analyze the types of spaces and the size of spaces and how we could operationally and efficiently serve the function of the PD, we were constantly checking the progress against the budget. We know that dollars in this aren't limitless, and we need to be able to validate the decisions we're making against the budget. And so we really did run through this program analysis in what we call a prioritization study. And that allowed us to analyze, okay, if for example, patrol is this big and intake and processing is this big, that starts to inform the budget. And we were able to sort of move back and forth very deftly between the types of spaces. So just a real high level overview, public spaces, and I'm going to apologize in advance if you can hear a piano in the background. It's 3:30 on Monday and it's piano lesson time in my house. So anyway, public spaces, we have about 925 square feet. That's the main lobby. Police administration, so that's the office of the chief and everybody supporting that. 1,670 square feet. Shared staff area is our largest overall program number, but that's somewhat of a catch-all at 7,386 square feet. That includes conference rooms, break rooms, locker rooms, training areas. And so that does become a very large number. Investigative services at 2,210 square feet. Patrol, The heartbeat of your police operations, 4,173 square feet. Intake and processing, 816 square feet. The traffic department, 575 square feet. Records, 1265. Dispatch and communications at 1,446 square feet. Our evidence and processing at 3,180 square feet. And then the DOC / multi-purpose room. DOC stands for the Department Operations Center. So in the event of a crisis or an emergency, that's where the police department would operate out of from an emergency standpoint. And that's at 2,886 square feet. Gives us a net adjusted square footage. But then as we start to look at how the building might stack, is it 1 story, is it 2 story? Through our various analysis and studies, we really did determine that this is likely a 2-story building. So we need to include a number for elevators and stairs. It gives us a net adjusted gross square foot or a net adjusted square footage. And then we add an overall grossing factor that includes the thickness of walls, shafts, so we can have mechanical ducts running through the building, all sorts of different other chases. And that gets us an additional 12% on our net square footage to give us an overall proposed building of 32,403 square feet. So now that we've sort of understood how big each department is and how much of everything we need, and we've checked that against our prioritization study to have a good sense of where we are on budget, our next real step was to understand how we start to lay these spaces out. And you'll find in a lot of police department buildings that there's always a need to have, everybody wants to be on the first floor. Operationally, you need your patrol on the first floor because they need to get out and access to the cars. Intake and processing needs to be adjacent to patrol. Department operations, multi-purpose room needs to be on the first floor because you have a lot of outside agencies coming in. That's where you're doing trainings. And so that's good to have on the first floor. Records helps you control your front lobby. So they need to be on the first floor. And then your shared staff areas, your locker rooms and your training areas, that wanted to be on the first floor too, just because of the adjacency to patrol and people coming in and off a shift. And so that really drove a first floor footprint of 16,219 square feet, which left us with an understanding of what could potentially go on the second floor. The police administration offices, shared staff areas, so that break room, investigative services, a bit of patrol that can move up on the second floor. We did push up to the second floor. And then your dispatch and communication center on the second floor. You're also seeing here at the bottom of the screen in red, non-essential support building. And as we started to go through the prioritization study and we were looking at the program, we were really informed by, okay, one, we needed to hit the budget. And it is fundamentally cheaper. It saves us dollars if we can reuse the existing PD versus build all that space new. And so that let us, in effect, stretch our dollars and get more of the needs, the department needs, by splitting the building functions up between what's an essential service that had to go into the new building, and then what we call non-essential functions. And that's really dictated to us by the Title 24, the building code, when we're building an essential service facility like a police department. There's certain functions that aren't necessary to essential service functions, and that's property and evidence. We were able to put some areas of patrol that are really just about storage, and then some additional shared staff areas into that non-essential support building. And like I said, that really allowed us to get to the budget that we needed to and build as much program so that the PD could operate as efficiently as they needed to. So now that we sort of understood the building stack, what could go on the first floor, what could go on the second floor, and what we're going to put in the non-essential building, we had a really good understanding of where the building was as it relates to the amount of square footage we needed per officer. And so we took a step back to validate what we had done to make sure that we were headed down the right path. And we performed a benchmarking study. The team went out and we interviewed a few people or a few other police departments in the area who had recently completed projects. And we want to understand, okay, well, okay, one, how recently was your project built? But two, how many square feet is your building as it relates to the number of sworn and non-sworn staff that you have in the total staff you're serving? And what that started to inform us was for Campbell, at 32,403 square feet with a staff count of 83, we've got 390 square foot per staff member. That's how big we're building the building. And if we look at San Rafael's recently completed PD, they've got 423 square feet per person. Morgan Hill was a little bit older, but it was suggested to us that we talk to them. They've got 646 square feet per staff member. Newark PD from 2020, they're right at 400 square feet per staff member. Salinas PD, somewhat lower at 319 square feet, but they're getting a lot of efficiencies. They're a much larger department, and so they get some efficiencies of scale in their count. And then Gilroy is proposed. It's still in development, but when Gilroy's done, they're going to be about 980 square feet per staff member. So that really started to inform us that yes, in terms of the size of the building and the operations that we needed, we were sort of headed in the right track, at least comparatively speaking, with our neighboring agencies. Feeling comfortable in our program that we had a project that was on target and on budget, we felt comfortable moving forward into the site planning and analysis stage. And as Amy started to lay out for us, the existing constraints of the site really starts to inform the decisions that we make. So when we look at the existing site plan, you've got the existing police department on the ground floor, city hall, and the balance of the building. Blue dashed line that you see on the screen delineates the footprint of the existing secure police department. Those blue arrows on the screen. In orange, you're seeing all the other public access points into the site. We were also taking a look at this existing communications tower on site. Early estimates started to tell us that it could be as much as $500,000 to try to relocate that communications tower. And so that became another sort of driving factor for us. Can we lay out and design the building in such a way that we don't have to relocate that communications tower? Not that it was a primary driver, but it was certainly a concern that we took into effect as we started to think about the use of the site. Additional opportunities and constraints. We start to think about, okay, well, where's the property line and what's the appropriate setback from the property line? We're in a relatively low height adjacent residential neighborhood. Development standards told us that for a two-story building that it was appropriate to have a 40-foot setback from the property line. We started to think about how that might start to influence the site. And that really starts to identify a developable site area, because another constraint was during the construction of the PD, the new police department, the existing PD operation had to remain fully operational for the duration of construction. So that really started to identify a developable site area within that parking lot. We know that we need connectivity to the existing PD because our programming analysis has said that we're going to reuse some of that existing PD. We've got the setbacks and we've got the need to keep the PD operational during construction. Looking at that 40-foot setback for the two-story building, we thought, well, we know we have an unbalanced building footprint. Functionally, we've got 16,000 square feet on the first floor and 10,000 square feet on the second floor. Can we take better advantage of our use of the site by keeping the two-story portion within the 40-foot setback, but letting a one-story portion of the building fall into a 20-foot setback? And we felt that that was an appropriate response additionally, because it starts to scale and terrace the building through the site, again, reducing the overall scale from the street, but still meeting the programmatic functions that we need. That started to leave us with a new sort of programmatic use of the site, operationally giving us 2 access points, on 2 different streets. So 1 access point on Grant, 1 access point on First. And I think it's important to note that operationally, that's very important to a PD. The existing condition that you have today, where you have 2 ingress and egress points adjacent to each other on Grant Street, can become operationally limiting. If there was a traffic accident or some sort of incident that was blocking the access point on Grant, the PD still has the ability to ingress and egress on North First Street if there was an emergency and they needed to get out of there quickly. And so that became a driving factor in the site planning. We needed the need to get access points to 2 different streets. We talked about the adjacency to the existing building and connectivity, and then the adjacency where a building entry might be. And all this really starts to inform how we are going to operate and use the facility. And then we can start to think about how we fit that program onto the site. One of the first things we really started to do is take a look at what are the grades on the site and how can we orient the building in such a way that we can provide smooth and ease of connectivity between the existing building and the new building. And so very early on, we determined that it was important to set the finished floor elevation of the new building to match the finished floor elevation of the existing PD building, so that connectivity could be relatively seamless for staff moving back and forth between the 2 facilities. Something else that did for us was it started to push the building down into the site a little bit. Our elevation on North First Street is about an elevation point of 195, where our new proposed finished floor is an elevation of 191. So our building is going to sit down about 4 feet below the street, again, helping us reduce the overall height of the building to the adjacent neighborhood. But what that does mean is, similarly the way that you either ramp up or down into the existing PD, you are now going to be ramping down to effectively the access point that you would access the existing City Hall. You're going to be at that same level that you'll ramp down and you can have access into the new PD. So that'll all stay at the same level. We've got an emergency generator on site, trash enclosure on site. The 2 secure access points, we're providing a Sally Court. It's not a fully enclosed Sally Port, but it is an exterior Sally Court with fencing and gates. That adjacency brings us to the intake and processing, which is adjacent to patrol and traffic. From that public access point, the main lobby, records controlling that front counter, again, providing outside access into the Department Operations Center, and then that locker room and training facility on the balance of the new building. The existing building we talked about is there's non-essential facilities. So we've got evidence and property and evidence holding. And then we've got some additional storage as it relates to patrol and evidence. We took some of because the program for the existing PD is smaller than it actually, than the footprint we have available. We've taken one of the program elements of the evidence, which is I'm blanking on the term, but when somebody wants to come in and review a piece of evidence or get a piece of evidence returned, there's a room where they can collect that evidence, but that room isn't used very frequently. And so we've made that room a little bit bigger and turned it into a conference room that could be shared amongst people using the City Hall staff, right adjacent off the public access. So it does provide a nice ease of access and a shared function that can be used between the PD and the City Hall. The rest of our site, we're as much as possible with the dollars in mind, trying to keep operationally and functionally things working the way they are. We have been able to situate the parking in such that we can leave the communications tower in place. We're leaving the fueling, the underground tanks for fueling in place as to where they are, but relocating the fueling island where the PD fuels their vehicles to the end island. We have the mobile command vehicle that will be parked on site. getting us an overall of 77 secure vehicles within the perimeter of the secure parking lot. Moving on to the second floor of the new building, you'll see we've got the investigative services, administration, PRT, which is a division of traffic, a break room, and then our dispatch and communications room, giving the break room and dispatch access to the roof deck. And having that sort of ability to step outside, we thought was really important. The dispatchers work really long shifts and a very stressful job. And that roof deck really does offer them an opportunity to step outside, breathe fresh air, feel the sunlight, and take a break from, when appropriate, when what can sometimes be a very stressful job. You'll also see down at the other end a mechanical well. We'll come back to that mechanical well in a little bit. And thinking about a comment from the last council meeting, we did start thinking about how do you build within this footprint to offer the opportunity to expand in the future. And while we've tried very hard to maintain that 40-foot step off of First Street for the two-story portion of the building, there is an opportunity to gather or to that one-story portion back in the future should you need to expand the PD. So there is flexibility there for the future for us should it be needed. So that leads us to the site plan. From there, we started to move into a massing diagram. What does the building look like? And I think it's really important, if it hasn't been clear to this point, every move that we made in laying out the site plan, laying out the spaces in the building was all driven by function. It may sound a bit of a cliche, but it really is true. Form does follow function. And the function, the operational efficiencies of the building really drove the massing of the building. But as we start to think about how we approach the massing, there are a couple other factors we'd like to think about. And it is a PD. There are secure and non-secure functions, and where does that line of security and how does that manifest itself in the design of a building? We've got public functions and private functions. The public functions in a PD, while very small in terms of footprint, are very important. And it's important that when somebody comes to a police department, they know where the front door is. They know how to access it. If they're in an emergency or in distress, having a very clear and well-defined access point to enter the building can be very critical to their safety at times. And so we started to think about, okay, well, if we have a two-story building, a traditional two-story massing of a building with a mechanical screen on top, that's a very traditional approach, but not very responsive contextually. And so we looked at starting to break the building down to help it fit within the context better. And so we very deliberately said we're going to keep the setback at 40 feet for the two-story. So we start to see this wedding cake effect of the building with the one-story portion sunken down into the site about 4 feet, then the two-story portion, then a mechanical screen on top. But we do have the opportunity to reduce the overall height of the building by taking that portion, and I'll jump back, this portion in the front, we can create a mechanical well. And then we can move the mechanical screen down and then further reduce the overall height of the building. That notion of security, how does that manifest itself in the design of the building? Any portion of the building exposed to the public view really is reinforced for ballistic protection. And so a lot of times you'll see that we'll take an approach to the skin of the building where we're using a very hardened material like a concrete or something that gives us that level of security and protection. And whether it's an aesthetic approach or a very practical approach, it can have two effects. One is providing us with that sense of security, but two, actually providing that security itself. We start to think about the context of the building. We're adjacent to the city hall, and what are some cues that we can take from the existing buildings on site? They're not going anywhere. how can we relate and fit in so that the building does become a good partner and player in the overall site. And so this eyebrow portion starts to mimic the eyebrow around the site. This datum also gives us an opportunity to start to locate other items on the building. Starting to carve away the where the public access is. If you can visualize, this bottom portion of the building is all glass, where the rest of the building does start to feel a little more solid. That glass function becomes that beacon or that signal to the public that this is the entry, this is where I'm supposed to head and go. Thinking about how we start to carve in new openings and new windows into the space as it responds to the internal program. And then again, pulling out that eyebrow piece to create this protected canopy. So we've got this really great opportunity with this sunken courtyard space adjacent to the public entry. And this sunken courtyard really can serve to the existing lower level of City Hall and the PD. And the columns that we add again start to mimic the rhythm of the language on the existing City Hall building. While we've kept these walls very solid because of what's going on behind them, it is good to bring daylight into the space. So this notion of bringing some high windows or skylights into the deeper recesses of the PD, we thought was important. And then thinking about our orientation, how the building sits. We don't have the greatest orientation. It's more of an east-west orientation. So we want to be careful with how we protect the window openings. And so introducing a series of solar shades on the exterior of the building to protect the glass. And then again, this canopy or this high canopy that protects this outdoor space on the south side really does start to create some nice protected outdoor space on the south end of the building. And then we have the detail and the refinement and start to think about how we might start to introduce windows. And then that really leads us to this, our proposed design of the building, where we get this nice board form concrete edge to the building. You're starting to see that canopy come out. The columns, again, start to mimic that same language on the face of the City Hall. We've got the windows down below so that when you are in this parking lot, you do start to see where that main entry is, the public lobby for the space, for the PD down here. You're starting to see we're introducing some warm wood tones to the underside of the canopy, and then using a light colored metal panel, something that starts to reflect the nature around it so that the building really does start to blend in and become a part of the community. This is a view from the upper level parking lot. We are about 3.5 or 4 feet up from where the main entry is. So like I said before, the same way that you would be ramping up or down into the City Hall, you would take that same ramp down to enter the new PD. There's a view coming around the corner from the sidewalk on First. You can start to see that sunken courtyard down below. You'd have direct access into the Department Operations Center. It could be a breakout space for them to come outside. Here's a view from the corner of First and Grant, looking at that secure entry into the PD. Again, the board form coming all the way down, creating that edge. This gives you a better sense of the windows and the sunshades and that outdoor roof deck that we talked about before. This aerial starts to give you a sense of the overall project as well. Again, looking back from the northwest corner, that view of that roof deck, we've got a nice clean roof, opportunity to introduce a skylight on the roof to start to bring natural light down into the upper levels. Because we've got the mechanical wall on the other side, we don't really have the space to get windows into the front of the building. Moving around to the east side, inside the secure parking lot, we've got the Sally Court behind the fence here, and then we'll have access directly into patrol down below. And then here's a view from that lower level courtyard. You're essentially standing at the doorway of City Hall, looking back at that the new PD. This one-story kind of high volume lobby space, creating that entry into the new police department. Now we did take a look at an alternate design approach. And in that approach, we said, okay, well, what if we didn't use a mechanical well? We put the mechanical unit on top of the building, giving us the opportunity to incorporate some additional windows on that second floor space. And how would we start to approach and treat that a little bit differently? In this scenario, we brought the glass from the main entry around the corner further. And then instead of a wood canopy, we're using more of a louvered canopy that starts to let the light filter down into the courtyard space. But essentially, programmatically and functionally, operationally, the building works identical in both scenarios. Here's again that view from First and Grant, looking back those high skylights into the locker room and the training room. The aerial view here, you can start to see the massing of the building because of the need for that mechanical screen does start to get a little bit bigger and higher. Moving around to the secure side, we've pulled the sunshades off on this scheme just to give you a sense of what the building might look like from that side. And then again, that lower level courtyard, similar operationally and functionally to the previous scheme. So then we've tiled the two options together just to give you a sense, and I believe this is in your council packet, so you can get a sense of what the two options look like side by side. You start to get, you can get a sense of what the impact of that mechanical screen is there. The last thing we did was once we got through the programming, site analysis, and conceptual design, we went out again to our third-party cost estimator to help us inform what the overall project budget was. We've broken the numbers down so that you can see the cost of construction for the new police department building, the cost of construction to renovate the existing space to accommodate the new reworked functions we're going to put in. Then we've got another number for the overall site work for a total estimated construction cost of $20,118,000 and change. And then within this list, we've added a series of alternates. Alternates for things that we would love to incorporate in the project, things that we're going to keep on our watch list as we move forward with the design process. And as we start to define the project in more detail, moving into schematic design, you'll see these things in the add alternate either move up into the overall project budget or potentially fall off if the numbers start to suggest that they're not available. But we've got an estimate for a canopy. We've got the mobile command vehicle and secure parking lot, as well as the patrol vehicles. Those are city assets that are great to protect. And if we can put them under a covered parking canopy, then we can help extend the life of those assets and protect them. And as long as we're building a canopy, we thought we'd look at what it would cost to add photovoltaic panels on top of that canopy. And so at 3,150 square foot canopy, we can get about 134 kW PV system. And we haven't really started designing the inside of the building, but based upon our past experience, we would expect a 134 kW system to offset roughly 40 to 60% of the electric needs of the building. Something we would look at dialing in as we move into the design process a little further. We have an add alternate to include a canopy over the Sally court. We have an add alternate to add a canopy to connect the new building to the existing building. So in inclement weather, staff can move back and forth in a secure way. We've also have an alternate to include canopy at the patrol entry where the beat pack storage will occur. We've got another alternate to increase the ballistic protection in the building skin. So that's actually, behind the metal panel or stucco walls, whatever they end up being, we would add additional protection in the ballistic protection in the skin of the building. And then just thinking about overall schedule, should the project delay, we've got additional costs in there depending upon whether or not we can hit our goals or not. So that is the completion of my presentation. I think at this point, I turn it over to Tim to help facilitate a discussion. So thank you very much.
So Tim, what are your thoughts on the discussion?
Well, I think that it would be good if we could break it up into questions of Jeremy, or if you want to go back to Amy, we could do that. And then I think with the council discussion, what I'd like to do is see where we can reach consensus or not. And what, like Todd said at the beginning, what the goal here is to get enough consensus and direction that we are able to proceed into the schematic designs past conceptual. So that's the goal. So I'll be keeping track of comments and consensus as you start your discussion, and then verifying what I'm hearing. And then I think because this is a special meeting, you have the opportunity that you could call a motion and get a vote, or we could just do a straw vote, or something less formal, depending on what the mayor would like to do.
Okay, so we're already an hour in, so we're going to be hard pressed to have a lot of conversation. So let's do this. Council members, would you feel comfortable, Councilmember Bybee, Lopez, and Landry, to have each of you speak in order? I'm not concerned about questions. I'm open to having you discuss questions to get answers, but also make comments. We're not going to come back around and have a second round because I don't think we'll have time to do that. So if anyone would like to start. Susan, you have a question? Mayor Melandri? Councilmember Library.
There anymore, you are.
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you guys for the presentation. Lots of work done. But as you mostly know, my big issues around site planning is where I start. And if the site plan doesn't work, then to me, the rest of the site, I won't get into much detail. So if you could bring up, please, the first floor plan so that everybody knows where I'm talking about on here. I don't know who can bring that up and why they're bringing that up. I'm concerned about the parking lot off of First Street. That's the main parking as you come into City Hall. The site plan on the first floor does not address and solve the parking lot problem. If you want to zoom in on where it says public access, the arrow going into the front door of the PD, now that area, if you can zoom in on there. So my question is, so you said the finished floor is at 191, so it's all down at the grade of the lower parking lot. But as you come in off of the parking lot, it doesn't say how many visitor spaces versus employee spaces. So it's not clear to me how this getting down to the lower level works. If I look at your view from First Street, it doesn't even show where the front door is. There's no signage. The poles are in the parking lot. And so can you zoom in where the arrow is to the building?
I think he's trying to do that.
Yeah, apologies. Give me 1 second.
Because there's a lot of grade change down there. You got to get to the, I'm assuming you're leaving the door to the lower level of PD. Can you zoom in a little more? I'm trying to see. Okay, so there's a long rectangle box and, oh, down to the end. There we go. So there's a long rectangle box and then the arrow shows going into the lobby. Is that long box below the arrow, below the arrow right there? Is that long box a ramp down?
That, so that long box is part of the ramp system down, yes.
Okay, so if I'm up at the two little wing things, there's a handicap parking space right there that hasn't been adjusted or identified. And then as you go down the ramp, down below, there's a lot of grade change problems when you get to the door at PD. The ramps are too steep going down, so there doesn't show any improvements under the word conference room all the way up to the side of the building. It's not showing what we're doing in that area. So the reason I'm raising this is to me, doesn't seem like the public entrance is very visible. It's down in a well. From the renderings and all the perspectives that you've prepared, I don't even see that front door. So I'm very concerned. I'd like to see some sections in there. And then if you scroll up a little bit, what is the arrow? What's that L coming out of PD going into traffic, by traffic? Where's the existing stairs to going up to the second floor of City Hall? What happened to them?
The stairs from City Hall get reconfigured to come from the plaza.
So if I'm on the second floor up by the building department, I cannot go out that door anymore.
Were you to go out that door, it would take you on an elevated walkway down to stairs that put you down outside of the secure parking.
Okay, so if I'm staff, do I have access? Because one of the site plans says City Hall employee access, and it points as if you can get inside the secure area. Can you get in besides that side stair that gets you up to the second floor?
I believe the approach was to allow staff to access, but not the public.
But general staff can get into the secured area.
General staff would not get into the secure parking lot.
Okay,
Staff.
Okay, and then I see a car and motorcycles parked inside the building.
Programmatically, we have the need to secure a vehicle that is a part of an investigation. And so it's the car that you see here is secure evidence holding for a vehicle that might be part of a crime scene that they have to hang on to during an investigation. And then the motorcycles, to protect the motors, we are parking them inside the building.
Is there any concern about exhaust coming out of those up to the second level? Are you going to do anything about the ceiling or prevent exhaust from going upstairs?
We would exhaust where the motorcycles are directly outside. And then there wouldn't be operational vehicles secured in there.
Okay, but you're going to exhaust the motorcycles outside, but is there any concern about fumes coming up to the second floor?
We haven't gotten to that level of design, but we will go through and ensure that it's designed in such a way to handle that.
Okay, and then scroll up a little more, please. Okay, so the trash enclosure is located in the upper right-hand corner of the drawing. How do you get to that for a dump, to pick up the trash cans or dumpsters?
Ideally, the trash is accessed through a secure gate and picked up from Grant.
So you would roll the trash out onto the sidewalk down the driveway and stick them out in the street?
Or the trash company would access them and then take them from the street, yes.
So there's actually going to be a curb cut there to roll the cans, the dumpsters down.
Correct.
So there needs to show some work there. Okay, and then looking at the topographic survey, does the edge of the asphalt...
Susan, or Councilmember Landry, excuse me, you're at 4.5 minutes.
Okay, my last two comments, and I'll, is the edge of the new parking lot the same edge of the existing parking lot? Along the length of along Grant, that edge of no, not the driveway, the parking stalls. Are those at the edge of the existing asphalt? Well, you can get back to me later. Are those compact spaces along the Grand Avenue, or are they all standard?
They're all standard size.
Okay, and how tall is the emergency generator?
Councilmember Landry, you haven't mentioned anything about the building and you're running out of time.
I said that I wanted to address the site plan mostly in my 5 minutes.
Okay.
Because I don't think it works yet. If the police chief is happy with the internal layout of the building, I'm happy. I just want to make sure dispatch has a window. Okay.
The emergency generator is typically going to be about 12 feet tall.
Okay, I'm concerned about the sight line around the corner because First Street doesn't have a stop sign. All right, so I'm not content yet with the site plan layout, especially the entrance. I'll pass to the next person.
Councilmember Bybee.
Thank you. First, I want to thank you, Jeremy, and the team for the presentation. It was a great presentation. It was really helpful for me to understand how you got from the beginning to the conceptual plan and the thinking and thought that went into it. A lot of it now makes more sense to me than it did when I initially reviewed the report. I'm going to limit my comments to questions because I have more questions than I'm prepared to move forward with comments. So that's where I'm coming from. The first questions I have to do with the parking, and so maybe Amy can respond. In the proposed site plan and the new parking on First Street, is the parking that's proposed, does that include both employee and public parking?
Yeah, yes, we will be looking at for both because at this point, if the project goes forward as is, right, for the PD site, that means that some of the visitor parking spaces will be lost. So when we look at the parking overall, we will need to look at how many visitor parking spaces we'll need to provide as well.
Okay, because that would be my concern, that we provide adequate parking spaces for members of the public that are not only accessing the PD, but also accessing City Hall, as well as trying to accommodate as many employee parking spaces as we can, and including, you know, handicap spaces as well. So that's one concern that I would have. And Councilmember Landy talked a little bit about the access to the building from Grant Street. Currently, the way it works is that the Public Works and Planning staff can access the building from Grant Street through the stairs there. And I wasn't sure whether or not the site plan allows for those employees to access the building from that location. And it sounds like the answer that was given is yes, they can, but it's more east of the site plan, if that makes sense.
If that's correct.
To the second floor, is that what you mean, Councilmember?
Yes, to the second floor.
Yes, yes, because the proposal is that the stairs will lead you to almost to where Orchard Green. So then that's where the connection could be made to the future lot, the current gravel lot.
So in other words, if a employee parks on the gravel lot and they want to come into City Hall and access the building on the Grant Street side, walking up the stairs, they will have that availability to do that.
Yes.
The site plan. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. And then the next questions I have actually, I just like some clarification on a couple of the rooms that have been identified and features that have been identified in the proposed facility as well as the existing facility. So the first one is the locker room and training area. What is included with the training component of that? What does that mean?
So the locker room would be this portion in the middle with restrooms, lockers, showers, etc. The block up above it is the training room, which is a fitness and training room where the PD can do,
defensive tactics, arrest and control, different hands-on type training.
Okay, and will the current gym facility that's located at City Hall be moved there or be utilized there, or will that still remain available for employees to use the current gym?
I think the current plan is for that gym to remain available to City Hall staff, and there would be PD specific fitness equipment in this training area.
Okay. Do current City Hall employees use the gym, or is it, I always thought it was pretty strictly police department.
It's open to everyone. I know it's mainly used by PD personnel, but it is a City Hall facility.
Okay. And then if you could talk a little bit about the Sally Port versus the Sally Port. My understanding of a Sally Port is that it's a secure drive-up facility in a PD where the car pulls into the spot and the doors close and it's secure to the public, and it protects the safety of the officer and other employees. And in your renderings, it's being called a Sally Port, which I guess is some type of a reduced scale of a Sally Port. And what is being proposed is that a drive up where the officer drives up in the car and escorts the prisoner out of the car into the Sally Port. I would appreciate some clarification on that.
Sure. What's proposed is a Sally Court. It operates identical to a Sally Port. The only difference is a Sally Port is like driving into a building. A Sally Court has portions of it that are open to the sky.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question has to do with the existing city PD facility. Will the evidence property room that's currently used in City Hall be moved over to the current facility so that space will be freed up? Is that part of this plan?
If you're referring to the space over near finance,
yes.
Yes, all that will be relocated to the existing PD building, so that space would become available to other city departments.
Okay. And on the conceptual plan, there's a lot of space in the existing facility that isn't identified. And so I'm trying to understand what that space is going to be utilized for, other than the evidence and the conference room that have been identified. Can you?
Yeah, so this portion in the top corner is storage for the SWAT team. This portion in the purple down here are restrooms within the existing building and sleep rooms. In blue, we've got different types of storage. There's the bicycle unit and their storage. And then there's another storage room for the traffic department. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the specifics of what's within that.
Okay.
There's also canine storage and the actual evidence processing and the evidence technician's office to process and store the items that are taken are also located in that space.
Okay. And one final question on the Sally Port. So is the Sally Port included in the budget
yes.
currently? And then the add alternate is the canopy that you're recommending if budget
yeah.
allows for that. Is that my understanding?
Correct. So the add alternate is to put a canopy so it would no longer be open to the sky.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you. I'll try not to repeat comments that have been made, although I'd reiterate the importance of the employee access and the parking issues and clearing those up. I'll just make some general comments and then might have a couple questions. I'd have to say I vastly prefer the first of the two options proposed. I think if we can reduce the height limit, especially given the neighborhood and how close we're coming to the residences, that's vastly preferable. Happy to elaborate more on that if that's helpful. But I'll keep it at that. I also really appreciate the proposed canopy. And, you know, I would just make a comment if there are ways to, you know, if we could have tables or in some way encourage the use of that space by the public, you know, to the extent that that still fits with the needs of the police department and you know, safety issues, there might be something worth exploring. And moving on to the alternatives presented, the list of alternatives. One question I had was, are these ranked or is this just a general list? I know that they're numbered.
Just a general list. They're no particular order.
It may be helpful to go through the exercise of ranking them and prioritize them. I think that would be helpful information to have, especially with the different price points, you know, some of them relating to safety. You know, I think that would be helpful. And for the photovoltaic panels, you know, Mayor Gibbons may actually know more about this, but I'd be, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there'd be grants available for installing some of that. The 40 to 60% cost savings would definitely be worth looking into that and you know, seeing if we can actually you know, secure some type of grant for that. But yeah, I'll greatly appreciate the presentation, and I'll close my comments there.
Okay, thank you. I have, and I'm going to check with Tim. I want to give you an opportunity to review your comments without sure you're comfortable. I'm going to just say that I agree with Member Landry's comments on the site plan. So as always, one should begin. I'm pressing myself for time. Thank you. It was very helpful to have the presentation. It answered a lot of my questions as to why you did what you did. So that was helpful. So thank you very much. Big ticket issues are on the site plan. I agree with Councilmember Landry. The elevational differences and the placement of the building for me is problematic. I knew what you were talking about with the 20-foot setback and the 40-foot setback. We, which you would not know, had a conversation on that years ago, that the city was more flexible about utilizing the full height at 20 feet and not doing the setback at 40 feet. So I'm not as concerned about that. But I do think the grade cross sections, the way the building has been placed now includes a lot of additional cost. And you'll hear my comments have to do with the value of the money. And I would say that the site program, one of the things that caught me quite by surprise was the fact that PD now has 75 or 80 secured parking. It seems that the program missed the fact that the existing parking lot that PD uses is also a staff parking lot and also a public parking lot. Same is true with the City Hall parking lot. That is also a public parking lot and a staff parking lot. Both parking lots are used for after 5 o'clock activities, a big support to our downtown businesses, and also for the events that we hold on the Orchard City Green and other events. So for me, it's problematic to remove all of the public parking area. So that's a significant concern. Second is the secondary exit from PD that you created onto North First Street is a concern because it's so close to the corner. I doubt that traffic would allow that on any other project. And the problem with accidents with PD and others involved has been at the intersection of Grant and North First, not at the entrance to the police station. So check that. Next point is that when we talk about the program for the site, I do not believe it's appropriate to have staff go from proximity parking, which is finished and trees and asphalt, to having them walk over an extensive open landscaped area to a gravel lot. So the employee lot listed as future, I think is inappropriate. That's part of the site work budget of the $2 million that we have. Oops, looking at my notes here. Okay, I was questioning staff that I do not believe, we were asked, I believe, for you to provide 2 alternative concepts for the police station. You have in fact provided only 1. The exterior finishes and treatment don't constitute, for me, a value for the council to see how else the police station could be accommodated on the site. And again, I appreciate your form follows function and backing into the size and location of the building, but I think we were asking in the scope of work for something more than that. So I would ask, comment that I'm not comfortable only having the 1 concept. Minor comments in looking at the floor plan of the police department. I have, as everyone knows, talked significantly about single purpose rooms. The Department Operational Center, or as we have traditionally called it, the EOC, is not, there was nothing in the program requirement to make that a public space or a shared space. Not to say that it couldn't be, but that's not the motivation behind it. And it's almost 3,000 square feet, if I see your notes correctly. And that begs the question of the height. I would assume your floor to floor height would be substantively bigger or higher than what might normally be required because of the size of that space. I also would ask, when you have the EOC, you need a lot of support, i.e. computers and power and all the things that go with it. So how would that room be fitted up? And I ask that because I've given an example in the past that the EOC at the Sheriff's Department in San Jose actually uses the working room of the administrators and simply has EOC seats with orange vests put on the back of seats, because then it's already set up for tables, chairs, computers, and so forth. So I'm not comfortable with the program, and you've heard me say this before, I'm not comfortable with the program for that space. I don't see how we've looked at an alternative. I'm not, and I want to be clear on this, I am not questioning why PD feels they need these functions. I'm not, that's not my area of comment. My area of comment is the fiduciary responsibility of a council member to seeing that we build the appropriate building. And there are other, what I call the value of money comments that I have. It is of note that your cost estimate, I think you said $561.36 per square foot for an essential services facility. It's odd to me that it's that low. All the previous estimates we've had have been $1,200 to $1,500 a square foot. And if you look at the library estimate, which will be coming up, I'll just give it as reference. That's an existing building, granted substantive work. They're saying $679 to $1,050 a square foot. So your number is precipitously low for me, and it's critical because I believe that the building is too large for our budget. And I'm having difficulty having confidence in the number of 561. We can spend time. I have spoken to staff about some of this. I appreciate the program of having to be first floor and second floor, but it becomes a very cost inefficient footprint because you are actually building, and I think your square footage on the ground floor is around 17,000 square feet. You are building 17,000 square feet of roof, and you have excess space. I mean, you've got a roof deck and you've got this potential 20 feet. It's not cost effective. So I question the value of not challenging ourselves to find a way to stack the building. For example, if you go forward with the EOC, can that not be on the second floor? To me, you're talking large spans and all of the things that go with it. So that to me is a question. Let's see. I'm looking for my other notes here. Sorry for 1 second. And I didn't set my own timer. I really am uncomfortable that there isn't a legitimate second concept. I suppose the big picture item on this one is that I appreciate trying to create the arcade and I appreciate the aesthetics, but Campbell PD is part of City Hall functions. It's a member of our City Hall. The way the building is designed, it's coming across as I'm going to say, lack of a better phrase, too elegant, too monumental, too important. It's the Civic Center, the City Hall, and PD are all part of our services to the community. I really question the value of the money spent creating these fairly elaborate arcades and covers. And I don't think the rhythm of the existing building to what you created really makes sense. I also am concerned about the entrance off of North First with the solid wall and the solid gate. It really makes it feel like a fortress. I do not believe that's the image that we want our police department to carry forward in our city. So I will leave it at that. I have a lot more comments I have conveyed to staff and I can discuss more, but I am not comfortable. I appreciate everything that was done. I value why they was trying to be done. But I'm not comfortable with what we have presented to us today to make any decisions going forward. Too many more questions. Okay.
I would agree with you, Liz, and all the comments you made about the building, I knew you would get there, so I agree with all of those.
Well, if I might add a comment.
Yes, sure.
I somewhat disagree with the comments. You know, the bond measure is what it is. It was a $50 million bond issue, and to be split between two facilities. And with what we have today with the PD, it isn't serving the current needs. And this building is supposed to serve today's needs as well as the future. And if you look at the world today, you look at what happened last week in Washington, D.C., to me, this building is bare bones to try and meet those needs. And I applaud staff and the consultants and the team for trying to come up with a facility within a budget that is limited, and to try and get to a point where we can feel secure as a city and look to the future and have our police and public safety people working in an environment in a stressful environment that provides them some sense of comfort and ability to get their job done.
So if I may say, I don't disagree with anything you said. I think that's PD needs the appropriate facility. I just question that the design as presented is that yet. So Tim?
Thank you. So I think we heard a good round of discussion, questions, and concerns today. And so, like I said, what our goal is to see if there is enough consensus that with the comments and the direction we've heard, if we can move on deeper into conceptual and then schematic design, I'll be wrapping up today with next steps, but the goal was to come back with schematic designs and answering a lot of the questions, taking these comments into consideration in early April. So that again was the goal. So wanted to hear if there is consensus that there's enough direction that we can pivot where we need to and still get you your answers addressed in early April, or if we need to put the brakes on, delay a little bit and come back with more of the substance that you're looking for. And I think I heard a little of both there. I think I heard from the mayor, I think that there was some larger concerns with the building, the alternatives, and with Councilmember Landry, I think it was about the site plan. I think it's things that we can address. I know they're valid concerns, but I think that those probably can be addressed as we continue. And then Councilmember Bybee and Councilmember Lopez, I think it sounds like they would possibly be okay with moving on with direction. So if there could be, like I said, it could either be a formal motion and vote or a straw vote, but if we can know what we're doing going forward here on the police building, that's the goal.
I would clarify my comment to you, Tim, is that I am not significantly not comfortable with the budget number of $561 a square foot. I think until that is addressed, I could not go forward. This is an essential facility building, and I don't have confidence in that, as well as my other big questions. All right, so my comment you've just heard, I'm not supportive of going forward with schematic. I believe we need to have more work done. And frankly, I think it needs to fit into our conversation of design build, going forward with design build at this point. Councilmember Landry.
I'm not comfortable moving forward either right now. I want some of these things resolved before we get more farther in the drawings.
Okay, Councilmember Bybee. You're on mute. There you go.
I guess I would ask what, is there a viable second alternative on the site plan? Given the constraints,
we haven't seen it.
Pardon me?
We haven't seen one.
I understand that, but what I'm asking is maybe the consultant can reply to this or respond to this. Was there discussion of an alternate site plan in their thinking and their planning, and this is the most viable or the only viable?
We worked through, I believe the site plan you see on the screen is site plan option 12. We worked through a number of site plan options, continually refining and responding to the operational needs provided by the PD and city staff. So we're happy to bring back and explore other site plan options, but as we explored other site plan options, this is the site plan that we were directed to proceed with.
Okay, and Sergio?
I have to agree that the differences between the two options, although I have a definite preference, are mostly cosmetic, and I do think it would be helpful at this point to see a true alternative. And I didn't dwell on this, but I share some of the concerns with parking that were brought up. So seconding or thirding those as it may be as well. But I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you. All right, so Tim, do you want to think about it and come back with a memo to council on next steps, or what would you like? How would you like to move forward? So there were two solid concerns about moving forward, one somewhat concerned about moving forward, and one supportive, I think.
Right. So I don't know if Brian wants to chime in. I think that we could probably turn something around with some, addressing some of those issues fairly shortly. But
Why don't you take it under advisement with staff? And we're tentatively scheduled to bring this discussion back on, possibly bring it back on January 19th council meeting. It may be valuable to do that, but the turnaround is very quick. So I'll leave it to you and staff to figure out how to move forward.
Yeah, so we'll get together right after this and decide, you know, if we can bring something valuable back at that point.
Okay. And now with 25 minutes left, we might sneak over, if people are capable of doing that, to have the conversation and bring back Councilmember Resnikoff. Am I following your pattern there, Todd?
Yes, that sounds perfectly appropriate. We need to get Abraham. I see he's logged on. Hopefully he's monitoring. So Abe,
yep,
if you're
I'm here.
Ready?
Yep, we are.
Walk through the library presentation.
And we need Councilmember Resnikoff.
We do. And hopefully he's monitored. I see him logging back on. So I think you're good to go.
So I should say briefly, just in terms of time, we do have about a half an hour presentation. We were kind of planning for about a half an hour presentation and maybe 20 to 30 minutes of discussion. So we'll do our best to be concise and quick here. But I just want to acknowledge that up front, given that it's a little after 4:30.
So are council members and staff amenable to spending an extra half hour till 4:30? Ann, Councilmember Bybee?
It's 5:30?
4:30. Where am I?
It's 4:30 now.
Sorry,
5:30.
5:30.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't go beyond that.
Okay, we'll keep it as close. And Councilmember Resnikoff? Yes, okay. So if you can make it 45 minutes instead of an hour.
We'll be concise. So Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much for having us here tonight. I've got with me Katie Stewart, who is the project manager here at Jason Architecture, and she's going to be presenting with me. So she's pulling up the presentation right now. So I've sort of had presented to you guys before. Katie, I just wanted you to briefly introduce yourself to the council.
Hello, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Katie Stewart. I'm the project manager for this project. Really thrilled to be presenting to you guys tonight. We've been working really hard on this project, and I'm excited to show you what we've been working on. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Katie.
Welcome, and thanks for coming back.
So I want to just take a brief moment here and walk you through what we're going to cover in our presentation tonight. And thank you. So we're going to very briefly talk about the existing conditions of the library. You guys are obviously familiar with it, but we're going to highlight some key challenges that we sort of need to address and sort of confront in our design process. We're going to talk about the budget. This is, one of the critical metrics of the success of any project. So it's something we looked at carefully with city staff and the library. We're going to talk about context. We really want to think about how this fits into the overall civic campus of Campbell. And then we're presenting two design concepts. The first is called the Town Square concept, and the second is called the Orchard Green concept. So first we're going to talk about existing conditions. And I want to first take a look at the existing floor plans of the building. I'm not going to go into depth on these. These are simply for orientation. We're going to be showing you some proposed plans. The main entry of the building on the east side is at the bottom of the page. Areas are color coded. Again, I'm not going to talk in detail because you're familiar with your building. That's the upper level. Here's the lower level. So one of the biggest challenges of this building is this half sunken lower level. This is actually a very typical condition of architecture of this era. It sort of creates a daylighting challenge. It creates an access challenge. There's a lot of sort of tricky elements that get created. So one of the things we needed to focus on was what we call the moat, the mound and the moat. It's a very defensive posture for a public building like a library. The second item that we wanted to take a close look at is this very foreboding ramp as you approach the building. Honestly, it's kind of an insane way to approach a public building. You're confronted with a choice about 200 feet out from the building about do you go up or do you go down? There's a little bit of a bias. If you've been to the building, obviously you do understand that the kind of main entries upstairs, but it's by no means clear to someone who's unfamiliar with the building, and it's a problem that needed to be solved. So those are some key issues of sort of you'll see focused on later in our presentation. We also really needed to focus in on the budget early on to determine our path forward for design. So we have a construction budget of 16.8 million. We have a gross square footage of just shy of 25,000 square feet, which means we have a budget per square foot of $679. Now, the comparable project cost range, and this is for library facilities completed within the last decade in the Bay Area. This is provided independently by our third-party cost estimator, who compiled historical data, escalated to current numbers, and also current recent bids of projects, is between 650 and 1,050 a square foot. As Todd noted earlier in the presentation, the total project cost is closer to 21, so the hard cost of construction is 16.8. So our budget is $679 a square foot. We're going to present you two options today. They are negligible in terms of their difference. There is a small difference. It's about $10,000 between the two. They're both coming in a little bit over budget at about $681 a square foot. For conceptual design, we feel this is essentially on target, but ever so slightly above that target of $679 a square foot. So we had to take some very sort of careful, thoughtful strategies to how we're going to approach this building with such a tight budget. The first is regarding the building footprint and shape. So we do not have excess budget to do an addition and to expand square footage. So we are essentially working within that, just shy of 25,000 square feet. And right now, the perimeter of the building has these notches within it that subtract from the square footage. And so we wanted to think about how can we creatively reconfigure this, keep the square footage the same, and consolidate that for better use. So thinking about daylight, bringing daylight into the building, thinking about the main stair, thinking about consolidating openings in the floor plate for structural reasons. So we're keeping the square footage of the same, but we're looking at consolidating all those notches into a more useful opening within the building footprint. The second item, we took a very careful look at the existing structural system of the building, specifically the lateral system. That's the earthquake resisting system in the building. This is a building that has all the lateral in the perimeter of the building, in the CMU walls at the ground floor, and then plywood shear walls on the upper floor. It's about 70% solid on the east and west sides of the buildings, and 54% solid on the north and south. And so what we quickly determined is that we were going to be unable to do a large glass curtain wall building. It would simply require us to redo the entire structural system of the building and the foundation of the building. So as a cost saving measure, we need to work within this proportion of solid to open. And that really drove a bunch of design decisions. And then the last big item that we sort of thought about from a cost saving standpoint is this sort of good fortune or sort of just good timing is the mechanical units on top of the building have a lot of life left in them. They do not need to be replaced as a part of this renovation. So that is a significant savings to the project because they will have years and years left in them. All right. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Katie, and Katie's going to talk a little bit about the context of this building.
Thank you, Abe. All right. So first off, first thing that I noticed when we came to the site, and I think it's sort of a common feature of the site, is these beautiful mature trees that surround the site. So we want to think about how we keep as many of these existing trees as possible, and also how we prioritize views within the library out to this really beautiful grouping of trees that you have already on the site. Another big piece of the context is its proximity to Orchard Green, and how does it sort of face the Orchard Green and help create this sort of sense of place, this civic core within the center of the city of Campbell, and how does it create kind of a backdrop for events that may happen on the Orchard Green. Also very important is the City Hall, again, thinking about how does the library fit into a campus of civic buildings. And then of course there's the historic Ainsley House, kind of at the apex of the Orchard Green. Very beautiful historic building, and really kind of ties into, again, this is sort of the center of the city of Campbell, and how does the library help foster this sense of community and gathering that Orchard Green kind of already has. And then also it's very close to downtown. The downtown Campbell has a lot of beautiful businesses and restaurants. It's very pedestrian friendly. I think the proximity to downtown really makes it important that the library has kind of an appropriate scale relationship with pedestrians, as well as really good pedestrian access to the site. And then kind of taking a step back, thinking about Campbell in general, it has this really important agricultural history. Its current iteration is very neighborly. It has a lot of residential areas with these mature trees and kind of sweeping streets. And then there's also sort of the impact of tech. Tech continues to grow in the Bay Area, and we sort of see that as an influence on the city of, continuing influence on the city of Campbell. All right, so we're going to dive right in and start talking about our first design concept, which is the town square design concept. All right, so right off the bat, this is kind of the germ of our idea for this concept. And the idea is an open green space within the fabric of a city where people can come and gather. And this is it kind of diagrammatically extrapolated into 3 dimensions. So you have this sense of buildings surrounding a green plaza. So you've kind of got high program spaces around the outside, and then in the center, you have this really vibrant space where people come together as a community. And then this diagram extrapolated into kind of roughly the footprint of our building. You see the white areas, you can imagine these are kind of the buildings, AKA the program spaces of the library. And then the green core, which is this gathering area, is the kind of the town square of the library, a more vibrant, more active space. All right, and then jumping straight into the floor plan. So this floor plan was developed based on the program that we created as the first phase of this project. And I will go ahead and say that both floor plans that we present today are going to be, they do meet this program that we developed. So just to orient you, down here, the orange arrow at the east side of the building, that's the main entry. And our sort of one of the most important challenges that we tackled with this building was creating an entry that felt more welcoming and was sort of more easy to navigate, had better wayfinding. So this new entry is actually going to be at grade. It's a split level, so it's sort of at the 1.5 level between the first and the second floor. And it means when you walk into the building, you just walk straight in. You don't have to go up a ramp, and you can sort of make the decision based on this new entry point about where you want to go within the building. Then in green, we have what we call the marketplace. It's kind of like the new collection, new browsing books. There's some study areas sort of on the north side of the building. And then this more vibrant, kind of louder community gathering space, the marketplace, is separated from, on the left-hand side here, from the children's area by a glass wall. So the yellow is the children's area. And then at the north side of the northwest side of the building, we have the community meeting room in dark blue, and it's sort of associated program spaces like storage, etc. And then I'll just really quickly point out too, we have number 15, which is a secondary entrance to the building. This would primarily be for exiting reasons, but it does allow an at-grade entry at the landing point of the stair. So it's another at-grade entry for the building. And then just to kind of hammer home our design concept, this is the town square of the floor plan, the green portion, and kind of the white is the quote buildings that surround it. So you can imagine that the central part is sort of more louder, sort of more active, where the rest of it becomes kind of more quiet. And then we've also thought about how this building could be used after hours. We know that especially the community meeting room needs to be something that functions kind of separately from the rest of the building. So this red boundary is the area that you could close off, not have to staff or supervise the rest of the library, and kind of use this independently. Legally, any building needs to have 2 at-grade entrances and exits, an elevator and restrooms to be operated kind of independently. So that's what we capture with this red outline. And then moving down to the lower floor plan, It's really primarily taken over by the adults collection. The teens are kind of that teal color up on the west side. I will draw your attention to, in dark blue, these are our collaborative study rooms. So these are the kind of rooms where you could go either individually in a small group, maybe take a video call, they're acoustically separate. I could see sort of, early incubation of a new startup happening in a room like that. And then we have the light blue area, which is the staff spaces, including sorting returns, the staff desks, etc. I will really quickly note that sort of down here at the bottom and in this sort of outline right here, these are actually cuts in the floor plate above. So if you remember what Abe was talking about, we're looking to consolidate some of the notches in the building into floor plate openings in the middle of the floor plate. And what this means is that daylight from above can really begin to infiltrate down into this lower floor. Because the building is half sort of subterranean, it's really difficult to get daylight into the floor plate and make it not feel so dark. So that was sort of one of our main focuses of the renovation, was how do we make the lower floor feel brighter? And then zooming out to the site plan. The site plan is sort of relatively, it's similar to how it currently is. We're not changing the square footage or the footprint of the building, but we do have a major change at the entry, kind of right where that red arrow is, because we don't have the ramp anymore. So this means that rather than having that really kind of daunting ramp when you first walk onto the site, you actually have more of a civic plaza at the entryway, better for wayfinding, kind of better for understanding how to get into the building, and actually a usable space that you could use for sort of different activities related to the library. The other major change that you'll see here too, and that you also saw on the site plan that Amy presented, was that we're proposing a new drive aisle between these two.
My network's gone down. I have missed the last 5 minutes.
Oh no, who did we lose? I'm sorry.
Hold for a second.
Okay, yep, hold on, Liz.
Should I hold
too? Katie, we
Yes.
just lost the mayor. She's trying to reconnect. She lost the last few minutes of that. So
okay, I can step back a little bit.
Just pause, and she's going to try to reconnect here for a second.
Okay. Oh, the age of Zoom.
The trials of digital presentations and everyone remote. Internet access is so critical.
I don't see her back yet.
I'm sorry, everyone. I'm trying to text her here to see if she's reconnecting.
Okay.
Okay, give us a second. I'm resending the link to her. All right, she's gonna try to re-log on here for a second. I'm sorry for everyone for the delay.
Not a problem.
I just resent the link.
Is anyone else having any issues seeing my screen?
Her
it's her.
Said to go ahead and keep continuing on and without her, and she'll join in as soon as she can.
Okay. All right, and we'll be free to go over any of these slides later during the Q&A portion too. So not a one-time presentation. So I think I was talking about the drive aisle between the two parking lots. So like I said, you saw on Amy's site plan as well, we are proposing a new drive aisle that connects these two parking lots. And this will really help with vehicular circulation on the site. As it is right now, these two lots are completely separate and it kind of creates some confusion. I know it's also potentially on the books that we do eliminate this entrance to the southern lot, primarily because of the problems it causes at the intersection between Harrison and Civic Center Drive. And then last, we are creating a new pedestrian connection to the sidewalk along Civic Center Drive. And this is also going to create a nice pedestrian connection between the library and the bus stop. And then I would also just sort of like to show you this section. It's going to help inform the way that some of these spaces work. I talked about having kind of the 1.5 level. So this section drawings should help you understand kind of how those spaces work. So this section is going to be cut along this red arrow here. All right, and then here you see this building a slice through right at that red arrow. And you can see at number 1 that we've got the new entry, which is kind of at that 1.5 level. We have this really grand bleacher stair. It's really the social core of the building. So it's stairs, but it's also seating. And again, it creates like the sort of the town square of the space if we go back to our conceptual idea. And then above it, we're creating a new clerestory window, kind of a new light monitor, which is going to bring in a lot of daylight. And you can see how that floor opening allows the daylight to come all the way from the ceiling down to the lower level. We're also thinking about the way that we address the grade around the building to bring in additional daylight to the lower level. So you can kind of see it over at number 4. We are eliminating the berm, and we're instead of sort of sloping up and then dropping immediately down, we're going to be sloping gently down to try and bring the sill height of those windows as low as possible and bring in a lot of nice new daylight. All right, and then with that, I'm going to hand it over to Abe, and he's going to talk a little bit about what this concept might look like.
Thanks, Katie. So we're going to take a first look at kind of how we're thinking about the exterior of the building and the material palette. Our primary material is a metal panel, and we're looking at that both from durability and economy standpoints, but also aesthetic standpoints. This option has a sort of forest green metal panel, the idea that it sort of blends into the canopy of the trees. And then as an accent to the metal panel, we're looking at the warmth of wood. So this would be used sort of much more carefully, really focused around kind of key points of the building, the major entry, and it provides a little contrast to that cooler green with this kind of warm natural material. Our first view is from the northeast side of the building. So this is as if you had kind of just parked and were getting out of your car. So let's take a look at how this building might all come together with some of those things Katie was talking about. Right off the bat, you can see major difference not having the massive ramp in front of the building. In this case, the entry is dropped down to grade. There's a very sort of graceful, simple entry with a canopy announcing where you enter. There's kind of these playful windows that kind of shape the form of the building and sort of frame views to the interior. And the kind of building is accented with wood as you sort of cut into it and at kind of the underside of the canopy. So going on to the next image here. So this image is as if you were standing at the bus stop and about to approach the building from that side, from the southeast side of the building. So what you can see here is you start to understand how we're starting to think about grade of the building. Instead of having that big berm up and then drop down into a moat on the other side, we're doing a gentle slope. We're going to landscape very carefully, thinking about that as kind of a lush greenway. And it allows these sort of grand windows to sort of go down and kind of invite your eye into the building. We love the idea about activity being visible from the street inside that lower level, which you can't see at all. And then these kind of playful triangular windows and the idea that, you know, the kids could be kind of peeking out of the corners of them. Really kind of fun feature. As we wrap around the building, we take a look from kind of entering the Orchard Green from Civic Center Drive. And this is from the southwest corner. We've got beautiful mature trees. So we're thinking about how the building is framed between those trees. And then we're also thinking about the importance of sort of announcing to pedestrians that this is a library building. So we want some signage on this side of the building. And then we also want sort of intriguing kind of window placement that draws your eye into activity inside. You can see that, again, these kind of fun triangular shaped windows are kind of at the corners. And then we have these slices in the building with these warm wood accents that kind of draw you in. And then wrapping around, our next view is from the kind of almost by the Ainsley House looking back towards the building. And one of the things we realized when we looked at this view angle is in some ways, even with the existing building, it almost serves mostly as a backdrop to the Orchard Green. So we love the idea about how it frames this outdoor civic space, creates an outdoor room. And then the idea that the kind of the green of the building will kind of recede into the tree canopy. It becomes very, very quiet. It's a presence, but it's not a loud one. And then, you know, sort of within that, though, we have sort of thoughtful views into the building. And you can really see that when you're looking down the Orchard Green back towards the Ainsley House in this next view here. So again, that kind of green backdrop dropping into the trees and the canopy, but then also these big grand windows that really sort of connect that public vibrancy inside the library to the public vibrancy of the Orchard Green space. So that is, we have one interior view as well, excuse me. So this view you can see from the kind of the little eye perspective is essentially from inside the children's area, looking out into what we call the town square, which is this big bleacher stair. So let's go ahead and step inside the building. We've got a little feedback. And I think it's gone. So this is inside the... Okay, this is inside the town square scheme. You're looking from the children's area, overlooking the grand bleacher stair. You can see that entry at grade. You can see a playful skylight that really washes light into the center of the building. And the idea that this could become an active space, a space for gathering, a space for performances even. And then the idea that we have a laptop bar, a great place to perch and kind of watch people come in and out of the building, interact with you know, the community. And then behind that, a browsing collection and some little study niches. So this really sort of embodies that idea of that kind of active core, the town square of the building. So I'm going to hand it back to Katie, and she's going to walk through our second design concept, the Orchard Green.
Thank you, Abe. All right, so for the Orchard Green concept.
One sec. I'm back for what it's worth, but we are tight on time again. So if I may ask to escalate your presentation.
Okay. I'll go even faster. All right, so where the town square concept was about gathering, the Orchard Green concept is really about connecting. So I'll click through these slides quickly so you can see, you can kind of see here the idea of a green strip connecting through the fabric of a town. And here that's extrapolated into 3 dimensions. And this is what it is sort of roughly overlaid over our floor plan. So jumping right into the floor plan, same approach to an at-grade entry as the town square. Again, we really see the ramp as just a huge barrier to entry, a barrier to wayfinding, and it also frankly isn't a code. So that was one of the major things that we wanted to change about the existing building. So at-grade entry indicated by the orange arrow down here. We also have 2 secondary entries and exits. This is sort of, again, to provide exiting and also staff entry and exit. This one serves as the main staff entry over here on the north side of the building. So once you've walked into the building, again, you walk into kind of the louder, sort of more active space of the building. This is the new collection. This is the browsing collection. We've got some lounge seating and some study niches to create kind of this nice community space. It's also where your sort of main circulation desk is up here on the second floor. Then on the south side of the building, we have the children's area in yellow. And then we also have up on the upper floor, the community meeting room, same as the town square, but this scheme also has the small collaborative study rooms up on the first floor. So rather than associating the study rooms with sort of the adults collection as it is in the town square option, we're associating the study rooms with sort of the more public facing marketplace collection. So that's a little bit of a difference between the two schemes. And again, just kind of iterating where how our concept works with this floor plan. And after hours access. So again, the red perimeter here shows the portion of the building that can be operated completely separately from the rest of the building. It has 2 entrances, an elevator, restrooms, and the community meeting room. This one actually is a little bit more compact and works a little bit better than the town square option in terms of the way that it functions. And then moving down to the lower floor, again, given primarily over to the adults collection, arranged a little bit differently. We have the teens in the southeast corner. We have kind of a medium meeting room, which we don't have in the other scheme. If you imagine that the community meeting room is sort of the large main event group space and the collaborative study rooms are sort of 2 to 4 person spaces, this is a nice sort of medium size that could hold about 10 to 15 people. And then again, we have the staff down here on the lower level in the light blue color, and this is the staff desks and sorting returns and sort of other associated support spaces. I will say too, again, we're really concerned about daylighting at this lower level. So we have created 2 openings in the floor plate. One is again at the entry, and one is sort of on the west side of the building over here on the Orchard Green side. And you'll see a little bit clearer in the section. But what's really nice about this opening is it allows us to have one sort of expanse of really beautiful kind of floor to ceiling double height glass right on Orchard Green. And that's gonna create views from both the first and the second floor out to Orchard Green. So again, it's really about connection in this scheme, whereas the other one was kind of about gathering. And then zooming back out to the site plan, again, because we're not creating a new footprint for this building, the site plan is essentially the same between the 2 concepts. We've created a new plaza at the entryway in lieu of the ramp, and we've created a connection between the 2 parking lots, as well as a connection to the sidewalk on Civic Center Drive. So in this instance, I'm going to show you a section that is cut in the east-west direction, and it's going to be a section through the main entry and kind of through that double height window space. So you'll see in the next view. So what we have is at number 1 here, we have a main entry at grade. We have light monitors in the roof that bring daylight into the building, and they actually bring daylight in through both of the floor plate cuts, again, allowing it to penetrate deep into the center of the lower floor. And then we have this sort of double height glass that faces Orchard Green. And we're going to sculpt the landscape and allow it to slope down here rather than kind of mounting up the way that it currently is to, again, really bring daylight deep into the building. We like daylight a lot, and we think that it's one of the major deficiencies of the current building. All right, and then I'm going to hand it over to Abe to talk about what this could look like.
Thanks, Katie. So let's take a look at how this building is going to all come together on the exterior. So first, I'm going to walk you through the material palette. It's, again, a very simple palette. The only real distinction here is we're looking at a dark gray metal as opposed to a green metal. So the dark gray is kind of sophisticated and timeless, and we're pairing that again with that warm natural wood. This is a really kind of wonderful pairing. It's one of those things. It's like a nice suit. It looks good, you know, no matter what. So taking the same kind of tour around the building, we're going to start from a view from the parking lot on the east side of the building, looking at the entry to the building. You can see here a couple sort of interesting differences about this building. Although the entry is kind of in the same spot, the articulation of the exterior is really, really different. The other option is a little more playful. This one's more sophisticated. So the kind of warm wood indicates the sort of entryway. This canopy draws you in. Clear signage. One of the other key differences is these bay windows. These are these crystalline forms that pop out and provide depth and texture to the facade, but also providing kind of beautiful framed views and views from the outside to activity inside the building. Our next view is down towards the bus stop and kind of looking back at the entry side of the building as well. One of the key things I'll point out here is, again, you can see how that sort of approach to grading, getting rid of the mound and the moat, is really working to our benefit. You can see into that lower level, you can see the activity, the books, and in fact, you can see all the way through the building, you can see the green poking out the other end. That's orchard green on the other side. So we love the idea that you can see through this building from both sides. Our next view, again, kind of entering orchard green, we're again looking to frame in between these mature trees. And you can see that here. Signage is important. We want people to know this is the library from this side of the building as well. And then those bay windows really providing activity. We love the idea of a kid perched in that window or a bunch of kids, storytime event, something fun that kind of gets families excited as they're walking up to the building. And then looking back at the building from up by the Ainsley House, again, really the kind of same impact that it really becomes more of a backdrop to Orchard Green. That dark metal, that gray metal doesn't quite drop away as much as the green, but it really does kind of fall away into the shadows. It's complemented by kind of some warm textural wood and then some big tall windows that really kind of draw you in and create connection. And you can really see the impact of those windows in terms of the connection through and to the building when you look back towards the Ainsley House in this next view. So this is from Orchard Green looking back towards Ainsley. And you can see immediately to the right that grand, almost double height wall of glass that Katie was speaking about, how it really is going to bring an immense amount of daylight into that, currently subterranean basement that is the lower level. And it also, creates this wonderful connection of the activity and the civic life inside the library to the activity and the civic life inside the orchard, outside in the Orchard Green. So lastly, I want to kind of step inside the main atrium of the building. This view is as if you just walked in the front door and you're looking up the kind of main stair. And what you can see here is, incredible visual connectivity throughout the building, completely different than the current building. Really clear views all the way through to the tree canopy on the other side on Orchard Green, views down to the lower level into the adult area. Views to kind of a fun portal into the children's area. We don't know what that'll be quite yet, but some patterns, some textures, some color, something fun. And then daylight streaming in from clerestories above, and the idea that that kind of warm wood from the exterior wraps into the interior. So we're really kind of carrying that concept of connection and the sort of cohesive building through into the interior. So with that, I want to quickly summarize kind of our process with the city and the library. So first, I want to briefly touch on how are these design concepts the same? They are the same from a budget standpoint. They cost the same amount. They match program area and overall square footage. They both reuse the existing structural system for cost reasons and the existing rooftop mechanical units. And they have a new entry at grade, which gets rid of that horrible ramp to the interior. They also both have clerestory windows for daylight. And then the facades, although different colored metal, are a mix of metal and wood. Okay, how are these different? The town square option, the first option we showed you, we would describe as more playful. It has a green facade. It has this sort of really fun social bleacher gathering stair. And the kind of connection to the entry is emphasized. The small meetings are at the small meeting rooms are at the lower level associated with the adult area. For the Orchard Green option, it's more refined, it's more sophisticated. It has the gray facade. It has the bay windows that are sort of crystalline and give some depth to the facade. And then the emphasis is on the connection through to Orchard Green. And then the small meeting rooms are on the upper level in this scheme associated with the marketplace. Okay, so in summary, we do have a consensus in terms of the preferred option in working with the city and the library teams. And that is for the Orchard Green option for these reasons. The after hours boundary is better defined and more conducive to use. The service points are more prominent and it provides more intuitive wayfinding. You can kind of see that when you kind of saw those interior renderings. The staff entry is in a superior location. It's closer to the parking lot. And the sight lines, as you could see, were really, really excellent. You can really see that whole building from the interior. And then kind of importantly, the community room is up towards the front of the building, adjacent to the entrance and the parking lot. And then there's also a feeling that the kind of more refined facade is a better complement for a civic campus. And there was a lot of love for that strong connection to the Orchard Green. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Tim, and he can kind of field questions.
Well, if I may do that for Tim, I apologize. I paid extra money to get good service, and I apologize. That's not what I wanted to have happen.
Happens.
Councilmember Bybee, would you like to go first?
Sure. I just had a couple of quick questions having to do with the marketplace. And I know that you, first of all, let me say I really appreciate the presentation and the work that Katie and Abe did and the rest of the team. It looks like a great plan. Both plans look great to me. I wanted to ask about the marketplace. I think you mentioned that it's an area where new books are on display. Is there also an opportunity for coffee and snacks, a gathering place for that type of activity?
I think I should probably defer to the library staff on that one. It's certainly something that we could discuss, but maybe Jennifer could better.
Councilmember Bybee, thank you for the question. We absolutely are looking at that opportunity for a gathering space right there. And yes, you actually can have food in the library now. I know, not today, but yes, we are looking at, again, that opportunity for people to congregate, be around, overlooking and meeting people there. So we have opportunity to make that a very flexible space. And I think that's the other thing that this firm has done an incredible job with in giving us opportunity to grow in this space.
Okay. And then I also wanted to ask about there's an abundance of, or what appears to be an abundance of one-person office space and small meeting room space, which I think is great. I'm just wondering, is that space fixed space, or can it be adjustable? Say if you need a room for more than 2 people in a meeting room.
So maybe Jennifer, I can speak to this. So in the staff area, if you're referring to the offices, there's actually very few single offices. I think there's only 4, and then it's almost all shared work area. In terms of the collaborative group study, there's sort of different sizes of collaborative group study spaces. The large community meeting room, we're looking at a divisible wall, so that can be separated into 2 separate spaces. At its maximum size, it would be about 200 people, and then divisible be in 2 rooms of about 100 people, depending on how we divide it. And then each of those smaller rooms are, sort of in the kind of 4-person range. So these, I wouldn't call them offices, I call them collaborative work and study rooms. And they are kind of separated, so they're not combinable, if that's your question.
Oh, yeah, that was my question. And are they on a first come first serve basis type thing?
Maybe Jennifer can talk about, we haven't really spoken about how those would be reserved, so that's something for Jennifer to answer, maybe.
Absolutely, we can explore the policies. We have in all of our libraries, we have different ways, certainly, that we make them as accessible to the public as possible, but we would certainly explore the best way to do that.
Okay. And then the final question has to do with the after hours access for the community room, and the diagram that was showed actually expands the area where a member of the public could actually go into the library. Is there any issue about security or any thought about how to limit people just to the meeting room?
Yeah, it's maybe just really briefly from an architectural standpoint, it's quite tricky. And it's made extra tricky in the scenario with the split level configuration. The best scenario for a community room is when you have a floor level on grade, right? If people can egress directly to the exterior, then that makes this a much simpler sort of challenge. But the fact that whether it was on the second floor or on the lower level, you need 2 means of egress, which means you need 2 stairs. So we don't want to create unnecessary stairs for the main entry, et cetera. So we have sort of grouped it in with access that includes the marketplace area. And, that's a balancing act from an architectural standpoint about kind of how much energy you want to invest in sort of isolating an after hours space. So in this case, it includes the restrooms, the elevator, the 2 stairs, the main meeting room, and then it does include the marketplace. So there theoretically is a little bit of risk for the sort of books in the marketplace space.
Okay, thank you. And then my final comment of the two designs or two concepts, I prefer the orchard green concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bybee. Councilmember Reznikov, would you like to go next? And then Councilmember Lopez, and then Councilmember Landry.
Okay. Thank you very much. Couple comments and then some questions. In the overall designs, thank you for the two designs. In the overall designs, I would agree that the orchard green design is more aesthetically pleasing. I don't particularly like the green panels. I don't think they blend in the canopy as desired. And I think somebody commented about the dark gray being more timeless. I think we can't lose sight that this is a building for decades. And if we look at the current City Hall, that was probably a nice design in the 60s. It's not a timeless design for sure. So something that lasts us decades is good. A comment was made about the, I guess, ingress and egress of Harrison and Civic Center. And I'm at that intersection all the time. I would just make a suggestion, maybe not eliminating the Harrison driveway, but maybe that being this is on the south side, an exit only right turn, which helps to flow through the neighborhood. The cars that stop there and make lefts hold up traffic, even though there's, I think, 3 signs there that say no left, it doesn't matter. So perhaps having an ingress at the northern one, maybe an egress that makes you have to go right, meaning you don't wait and hold people up to go left and cut across traffic. People do tend to speed there. They're just a thought of maybe making that a defined in and out. Question before I'll get to my comments on the design. What is the difference, maybe I missed this, between the meeting study rooms and the study booth?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I don't know if we sort of spoke to that directly in our presentation. Katie, can you go to the floor plan here? So the small dark blue spaces labeled number 4, those are collaborative group study rooms, and they generally, I would say, about 4-person rooms. So you can kind of have a small team working in there. They'll have AV equipment, a monitor. The number 7, the study nooks, those are spaces with a built-in kind of banquette, and that would be more for laptop use. There isn't any AV equipment in those rooms. So those are more niches in the wall. They're not acoustically separated, although they are acoustically lined. So that would be the distinction between the two.
So is 7 then, is that multiple people in that one room?
The 7 rooms, I would say you'd probably have, 2, maybe 4 people max. I could see 4 in the kids nook. I could totally see 2 adults reading to 2 kids in that nook. Probably for the adult study nooks, those are more like 2 people at a time spaces.
So lined up kind of so you can use a laptop. And
yeah, these would be laptop spaces. Exactly.
As you would in some airports where you find a long table and you can sit.
And there'll be power at the bottom of the banquette so people can plug in their devices.
Okay, so bigger picture, what I keep going back in my mind to is that this has to last many decades. And I'm a little surprised. I'm looking at the presentation that Todd sent out earlier. It has all the slides in it. If we look at slide 63 is the slide of kind of on the stairs to the info booth and all the room below. It's very much like current libraries, rows and rows of shelves of books. I think this has been discussed before. It surprises me. I gotta believe that as we move forward and look forward in the future, that's not what it's gonna look like. And for me, I use the library a lot, but I have books on hold now, but only because they're not available as ebooks, right? We have a new generation growing up now that's doing remote learning because the schools aren't open and can do more and more of that. And I would even think at some point you'll offer downloads of streaming, because why should I go in and get a DVD? I ought to be able to download it or access it through some service. So I'm just wondering, when I look at this, how much we're planning well into the future. I think it was maybe the mayor might correct me, Nancy Howard, somebody gave us a presentation one time on robotics in libraries and things like that. It was like a future looking presentation at one of the council meetings. And that's when I'm just wondering, how are we planning for that in the future? This looks very, very today to me. But for any buildings we do, we got to look we're 50 to 60 years on the other buildings. We got to look 40, 50 years out. And one other comment I'll make is I was happy to see in there that there is space for the museum. You call it history space. I call it kind of museum space. I had raised the issue earlier. I personally believe that we would get more exposure to our museum materials if we cycled them through the libraries and schools. Frankly, I believe that. And make them rotating kind of displays. I'm wondering if we can have some more space in the library to make use of that. I think especially having gone through COVID now, we may see fewer and fewer school buses with 100 kids showing up to go into a small museum, but they could do it in here. They can do it at schools. I would like the idea of some, I'll call it museum space, not history space, where it's a regular rotational thing. It may also bring more students in. So that's something I'd just like to see worked in there more. And I just would like to have an idea in the future, decades down maybe, or years down, what's it gonna look like when it isn't all books? Because this generation coming up now is gonna wean themselves off of books, I believe, because the computers become so natural, the ebooks become natural, the downloading becomes natural, and sadly, last year, remote learning became natural. So I'd like to just see that more incorporated, and I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lopez and Councilmember Landry.
Thank you. I very much appreciate the presentation. I'll just say quickly, some of the common elements that I very much appreciate. Emphasis on daylight is great. In terms of the site plan, the bus stop connection and the drive aisle are great. I appreciate Councilmember Reznikov's suggestion about the right turn in order to make the traffic flow better. Also have a preference, as others have mentioned, for the Orchard Green concept. I'm concerned that with the town square with the green facade, that it would be very out of place as the seasons change, and it would not be designed for year round. I'm not sure at this point if this would be too much of a change, but I'd be interested in having some kind of entrance out onto the Orchard Green, just to really make that accessible in a space that when you're on the green, you can walk to the Ainsley House, you can walk to City Hall, or you can go into the library. I think that would really help the community feel and having that town center. In terms of the community room, and this may be a question for the librarian, but has there been given thought to having that be kind of a theater setup or a performance space, somewhere you could host poetry readings or even maybe after hours have musical artists. We have a great art scene, a lot of musicians that play downtown. Unfortunately, not right now, but very talented local musicians in Campbell would be great to open up that space. And one question is, can someone speak to the accessibility, and are you going above and beyond just the ADA requirements, and in what ways? For example, there's been really tremendous work being put into our parks and making them accessible to children of all facilities. And with the way that we want the library to be a meeting space, have space for children, for all ages. I'm curious to hear more about that.
Yeah, in terms of accessibility, first, from a code standpoint, there are major deficiencies with the existing building. Sort of first and foremost, most of which is the primary entry, right? That large existing ramp might have been forward thinking from an accessibility standpoint back when it was built, but it's not compliant by any remote stretch of the imagination now. And, there's a lot of details that we have yet to get into, but certainly one of the principles of universal design is that, sort of someone can access the building the same no matter who they are. So that speaks to the elevator being sort of immediately at the entry and not being hidden away. That speaks to spaces being easy to navigate. That speaks to spaces being comfortable for someone to access in a wheelchair or if they're disabled in other ways. So there's a lot of little details like that. First and foremost, we tackle the big code compliance ones, and then we absolutely will be striving towards kind of a universal access approach to how we think about this building.
Great. And would really urge you to, be very thoughtful, as I'm sure you will be, about that, and comprehensive, not just physical disabilities, but for example, some children might have sensory overload from if you walk in and the entrance is too loud, or there might be quieter areas where they might be more comfortable. So just urging you to look at that. And then my final comment, I will very respectfully but strongly disagree with Councilmember Resnikoff in terms of planning for the future and books. I think if we move too much towards technology, we actually run a greater risk of being a little maybe too trendy and flashy, and technology changes every year. So I would urge caution. And speaking as someone from the millennial generation, studies show that books are actually more popular. Ebooks are popular with maybe older generations. Libraries have seen big booms right now during COVID. And kids, I know teenagers are zoomed out. They're exhausted from being on screens all day. So, I'd urge a little caution there. I don't think that books are gone quite just yet. So maybe a way to balance that and be able to have areas where we can showcase different innovations, but still not lose sight of that. And also seconding, very much appreciate the showcasing of local history. Similarly, any way that we can and increase that, I think would be a big value add to the community and showcase some of our other assets. But thank you for the presentation.
Councilmember Landry.
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys for the presentation. A lot of work has gone into these. I'm not going to focus so much on the internal of the building. I think if the library is happy, then I'll be happy. I do take to heart what Councilmember Resnikoff said about stacks potentially going away, but I also agree with Councilmember Lopez, and we're all on overlaid on computers lately. So my only comment would be make it flexible so that in the future, if the stacks aren't there, what can go in and whether it be electronics. So I'm going to focus on the site plan. The driveway out onto Harrison by Civic Center Drive should probably have a pork chop in the middle so you can only turn right in or only turn right out to keep the people from stopping out on Harrison that are coming from Campbell Avenue. And I think there'll be a sightline problem with the new corner layout. Number 7 on the site plan, looks like it's keeping a landscape area in the parking, but that new drive-through, you have to jog around. It's kind of circuitous. You come in the one driveway, you turn left, then you turn right, and then you turn left just to get out. I'd like to see an option where there's parallel parking along Harrison Avenue and have the drive-through connect all the way right to left. I mentioned when you first started about our redwood tree on the corner of the southwest corner. The elevation is 197 and you have a door and stairs coming out there, which I think you're saying that'll be mid-level, but you can't slope down in the corner around the tree. The wall is freestanding there, but I think you need to rethink how the grades occur in that corner. The one option that shows the door still coming out onto the central green area, as Councilmember Lopez mentioned, it might be good to have a door there, but I think I understood early on that the library only wants one pedestrian ingress into the building. Other than that, I'm sorry, one last thing. and this is probably a little technical for Public Works. My understanding is the sanitary and water supply lines are very old and may not be adequate for the new restrooms. And we had talked about whether we're going to still go into the green for utility connections or go back out to Harrison Avenue. So I just want to make sure that's factored in.
Thank you, Councilmember Landry. A lot of things that I would have said have been said. I'm fine with the Orchard Green approach for the library. They're doing their fit up, so I'm comfortable that they're going to pick furniture and things that are flexible and will meet the needs over time. In terms of design, I appreciated having the additional detail and presentation. Thank you. I'm a little questioning the removal of the, on the Orchard Green side, what happens to the berms and the magnolias that are there in terms of the grades around the magnolias. So I'm a little thinking that more research needs to be done about whether those trees can in fact be saved. They are important, but I think you need to take a look and tell us what can be done. I love the ideas of the bay windows and different things and the skylights and getting the whole space open. I was hoping the one on, I shouldn't say I was hoping, I'm reviewing the bay on the north side, and I'm a little disappointed that there isn't more connection to the Ainsley house with that bay window, or some bay window, perhaps on the Orchard Green side. Only because the one on the north side is looking out at cars. So I appreciate the symmetry and everything. I am a little questioning how you're making the structure work on the masonry block walls. You're making a lot of penetrations in them. And as you've done your diagram, I saw that earlier, I appreciate. I didn't quite see the pattern of that. So I'm just going forward. I want to make sure that you understand. So I'm going to do the same comments that I've made for the police department. You want to look for dollar value. And I just, when you put the windows and the bays in, you don't want to have to reconstruct the struggle system. And you spoke to that. But what I'm seeing makes me a little bit nervous on the lower level in particular. I'm also not sure on one of the renderings, it seems to slope from the sidewalk on Civic Center Drive down, and there's no entrance at the lower level. So I'm wondering if that's going to create a new opportunity for our homeless. Getting rid of the existing stairwells is going to be a big help for that problem. We have transit residents in those areas, so anything like that would be helpful. I don't understand your wall section, and I don't need to, except I don't understand how your skin system works between the wood framing above and the masonry wall below. Is it skimming over it and all of that? That concerns me a little bit, and it does mostly because of the dollar value. What is it really doing? So as you go forward in the design, which I would be supportive of, is really helping us understand how that's all going to go. I'm less concerned about it, frankly, because I think your dollars per square foot amount is legitimate, and it'll address those things that I see as potential money risks. So I'm okay with that. I'm just curious to see what you'll come up with next. And I think that's all of my comments. So to summarize and ask each council member, and for Tim's benefit, Tim, do you want to summarize first, or do you want me to ask where people stand?
Well, I think I'm hearing that, you know, we got a consensus on the Orchard Green, and we've got a lot of good comments, but I think those are the types of comments that will be very helpful in the next phase, which is our schematic design phase. So I think we've got what we want, but Mayor or Abe, if there's anything more that you think we need to go forward.
I heard a pretty strong consensus as well with the Orchard Green, with the questions that have been asked that will be refined next go around. Councilmember Bybee, is that consistent with what you'd like?
Yes.
Councilmember Resnikoff?
Orchard Green, yes. Your second part was?
Are you comfortable with them going forward into schematic design?
Yeah, I like to see designs. I mean, I've indicated that I think there needs to be some changes inside. I appreciate Councilmember Lopez's comments. I just disagree on some of that, but I'm hoping to see some changes that make it, to me, more long-term.
Okay. And Councilmember Lopez, I'm going to find you on my screen.
Yes, I'm comfortable moving forward with that design.
Okay. And Councilmember Landry?
I'm comfortable moving forward with the building design, but I think the site plan and the parking layout and the door exits and the trees still need to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. And that just knocked what I was going to say. Oh, so one of the things I wanted to bring up is next steps. And the two projects have been moving along on the same path time-wise, but I believe at a previous meeting, it was said that the library project has been ready for a while and could be moving forward more. Jason, help me here. I would like to ask the council and staff, I would be supportive of separating the projects and having the library project move at its own pace. For cost-effective reasons and just no reason to wait. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that, Jason, not Jason, Abe, and Tim.
I can speak briefly on our readiness to proceed. You know, that's really a question for city staff, to be clear, but certainly we feel ready to proceed into schematic design, and there's a whole host of sort of things that we need to explore. You guys have touched on many things that we know we need to address in the next phase, but we feel confident moving forward with either of these designs, but it seems like it's pretty clear there's a consensus with the Orchard Green scheme.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I would agree that we could separate them at this point. And I think that our team will look at the PD with LPA and see if we can very quickly get you back to comfortable to move forward on that as well. Good.
Okay. Any questions by any council members or staff? Susan, Councilmember Landry?
Katie, and do we get a woohoo on this one?
Yes, we get a thank you to all the teams for working very hard.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's been a lot of hard work, exciting projects, and we're all excited about what comes next. So thank you all. And
can I make one comment?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just one comment. That I got to be careful because I can't comment on the other project. But one thing that concerns me is losing urgency on the whole project, not just one half of it. So
fair comment. Fair comment.
Easy to move forward, and then it's not a big concern. That is a problem for me, and I don't know how I answer it without getting into that project. So I'll leave it at that.
It's a valid comment. Thank you for making that. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mayor Gibbons.
Yes, Councilmember.
Yeah, speaking to the other project, I just like to.
You have to be careful what you say because Councilmember Resnikoff is in the room.
Okay.
Can you say that to staff?
Yeah, that's fine. Just about meeting schedules, but
okay.
Can certainly do that. Great, thank you.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Thank you all. Thank you for your patience in staying. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.